Again, my name is Kurt Leiber. I'm the president and founder of Ocean Defenders. And I'll give you a little bit of a history on myself first, and then I'll get into details about ODA. I grew up in Ohio. I was living about 9 miles away from the Cuyahoga River, and the Cuyahoga River caught on fire in 1967 or 68 and burned for 3 days. And I was swimming in that same water 9 miles away. And this wasn't because of an oil spill, it's because that's how we treated the waters back in the 60s and 70s. They were dumping all the industrial waste directly into the river, and of course it was going right to the lake, and it ended up in the oceans, obviously. So at the same time I was out there swimming amongst all that stuff, I was going in my living room and watching this wonderful stuff that Jacques Cousteau had on his programs, and it was all in color, and it was just a magical world for me. I was 14 years old when all this happened, and it struck a chord with me. So I knew at an early age I wanted to get out of Ohio and go where I could go diving. And where better to be for diving than California? I moved here in 1979 to Huntington Beach and started swimming amongst all these great kelp beds. And then I was starting to see, actually in 1982, there was a massive die-off of kelp because of an El Nino that came through. And I started, I'm not a marine biologist or anything. I just started, actively seeking out information on why was this happening? Why wasn't the kelp coming back? I understood the El Nino stuff, but why wasn't the kelp coming back? And it was because the otters weren't here. We had pretty well hunted them to extinction, to the point where in 1932, that's all that was left, were those 100 animals right there. That was all that was left along the coast of California, as well as the coast of the United States. So they immediately put a moratorium on killing them. They were killing them for pelts at the time. And then the otter started coming back, and it had a tremendous effect on the ecosystem. One of the main animals that otters eat are abalone, and that's what you're seeing here. And abalone used to be really prevalent around California, as well as Oregon and Washington. But we pretty well hunted them to extinction. This is just one company. I think this was 1934 or something like that in Santa Barbara. And that was just one company, and those were all abalone shells. And that was a huge problem, obviously, to the abalone population. And one of the other animals that otters eat are urchins. And urchins, if left unchecked, and which they were because the otters were eliminated, the urchins start eating the holdfast of the kelp, and that's what you're looking at there. That's pretty much the root system for a kelp plant. And when they eat that stuff, and they might not look like they can do much damage, but they can the holdfast within a couple of weeks. And when the holdfast is eliminated, the kelp floats away, and you end up with these urchin barrens. There's nothing for these animals to feed on anymore, or there's no kelp around anymore for the animals to live in, and the kelp plants just float away, and they drift off into wherever, and they die because they can only grow when they've got the holdfast attached to the rocks. And in a healthy ecosystem, a healthy kelp forest, there will be about 850 to 950 different species of animals that thrive in there. One of those animals is the sheep's head, and sheep's head can eat urchins. So I was really interested in that. Maybe these guys can help keep the urchin population down. But unfortunately, they're really curious animals. They come right up to divers, and divers have been spearing them forever, to where it's rare when you see a male that size anymore, and they have to be a certain size before they can eat them. Another animal that can eat them is the lobsters. This was a trap that I came across in 1999, and it was in Anacapa Island. There were some animals stuck in it. And being a vegetarian, I decided, well, I'm going to set those animals free and hope they live to see another day. So as soon as I got up to the dive boat, and there were about 25 divers on this boat. Everybody was talking about it. They had never seen anybody release a lobster before. So I started talking to my friends, and I was volunteering with Sea Shepherd at the time to see if they would donate a boat that we could use to do this. And they did donate a boat, and it was a 24-foot boat. We had a real nice mural put on it. I like to advertise what we're doing and let people know what's going on in the waters around us. Most people, as you know, don't dive in Southern California, but they live right here amongst this natural world. One of the problems with the lobster traps are these lines that get left behind. That surface, that line goes to the surface. There's a surface marker buoy there, and then a lot of times that line will get cut. And then a whale comes along, and these whales are coming along here all the time. This is something I filmed right inside LA Harbor, a mother and a baby just migrating their way through the harbor. This was an animal that was filmed in Laguna Beach in about 20 feet of water, a gray whale. And this is part of their migration route for eons. And now we're putting all these traps in their way. And it's a real problem. We have a lot of entanglements that are happening up and down the coast, gray whales as well as humpback whales. So I wanted to do something about that. I love whales. I think everybody alive respects whales for their habits and just their mere size. And so we started removing a lot of the abandoned lines that we see. What you're seeing there, I was holding a polypropylene line, and these lines get wrapped around these animals. Here's a humpback off of Newport Beach. This is going back, I believe, 2 years ago. It might have been 2017. And this animal got this line wrapped around it. As you can see, it's cutting right into her flipper, and she was really distressed, really pissed off, and she's thrashing about. It's very hard to remove this stuff because the whales don't like it. They don't like people being around. And if you can't get it off, it becomes really deadly. Now, there are teams that specifically are trained on how to remove this stuff, and NOAA has a skilled set of crew that goes out and tries to remove this stuff. NOAA just started tracking where these whale entanglements are happening about 15 years ago. And here you see fin whales, gray whales, humpbacks, and the majority of them are either gray or humpback whales. Something like 48% humpbacks and 46% gray whales. So moving along to 2000, I believe this was 9 or 7, something like that. Sea Shepherd donated a boat to us, and this was a 40-foot ex-Coast Guard rescue vessel. It was made out of aluminum, so it was a lot sturdier. We could go out further with that boat. So we went out to Catalina Island. We had heard about this wreck out there called the Infidel. It was in 150 feet of water, and it had a huge net that was on it. It was its own net, and there's a whole story I could tell you about that. But this net was a huge problem. This is a squid boat, and these nets are made out of nylon. As you guys know, nylon is pretty well indestructible. The scientists estimate it's going to last 650 years in the environment before it breaks down into smaller and smaller microplastics. So it's extremely durable. And while it's down there, growth gets on it, and then shrimp and crabs come and eat on the growth, the algae and stuff are on it. And then, of course, the sharks, the seals, the sea lions, and other animals, dolphins, come along and get stuck in it because they're trying to get those little shrimps and whatever fishes are stuck in it. And this is a prime example of a perpetual killing machine. We've released a lot of animals off of these nets over the years. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's been huge that we can release these guys. Some of these animals, like sculpins and other bottom fish, can live up to be 200 years old, and they're getting caught in this stuff. So we lose a lot when that happens. The LA Times covered the story when we did this project, and all of a sudden we were known, I won't say all over the world, but I was getting calls all over the world that they wanted to know if there was ocean defenders in their backyard that they wanted to help out. Of course, there isn't, but it shows you that there are a lot of people that want to help out. This goes to 2013, I believe. Bob Barker made a significant donation to us and allowed us to buy a bigger boat that was much safer for us to operate. And the very first time we took this boat out, we found a trap. There were several traps. So one of the traps had, I believe it was 42 animals in it, and these were all going to die in there or get eaten. I think it was a poacher's trap because there was no line going to the surface. Here you see all the trap markers. This is the south part of Laguna Beach, the MPA, Marine Protected Area down there. And they set these traps so close apart that it really is a problem for migrating whales, to the point where I had to document this and get this information out to the public. The Orange County Register ran a story about it. And then we're proceeding to get NOAA and Department of Fish and Game involved in this, because these are, even though gray whales are not endangered anymore, they were taken off the endangered species list a couple years ago. They're protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and you cannot harass these animals. And in my point of view, this is harassment. Here's a map. Every one of those purple dots you see there is one of those trap markers. So you can see a whale with a 35 to 45 foot wingspan trying to get through this. It's highly probable that they're going to get caught and entangled in them. So I then went down underwater, excuse me, and filmed what it looks like underwater. It's hard to get a grasp on how close these traps are set apart, but look at that. That's like 10, 15 feet apart. Some of them are right next to each other. And of course, amongst all these active traps, there's always abandoned traps, ghost traps. And we see lobsters in these things all the time. So one of the best parts of our day is getting a chance to release these lobsters. And in this particular case, I think we released 5 of them. And it's really important to get these animals back out. A healthy one like this that's mature, they can release 680,000 eggs into the environment. Now, obviously not all of them live, but the bigger the animal, the more eggs they release. So we want to get those guys back out there helping the population rebound. And this is, the Register ran a story about it a couple years ago. I think that was 2018, might have been 17. And it went over pretty well with the general public. And of course, I got a lot of flack from the fishermen that we can't prove that their lobster traps are trapping these animals. But here's an example of one whale that was a humpback whale that had her tail fluke completely severed. And there were 3 of those sightings that happened in a 3-month period in 2016. So going along with the trap removal, we can't always be out there because of conditions, rain, it's difficult to dive year round. So we're expanding into removing plastics out of the waterways. When the rains come in the wintertime, it washes all this debris off from the mainland through the water streams, the canals and waterways into, this is Huntington Beach. You got the Back Bay, and we have all these great animals that come flying through there on their migration route. So I wanted to highlight the impact this plastic is doing, and this is just another thing that we do is educate public. Big advocate on looking at the whole ecosystem, not just one aspect of it, like the whales. We want to have an intact ecosystem, not just a monoculture where we protect one animal. So this is just one example. Out of Huntington Harbor, we removed all that stuff in about 3 hours. Going to Seal Beach Wildlife Refuge, This is right in the simple building of PC. That place just gets massively inundated with plastics when the rains come. The city isn't doing anything about preventing, I shouldn't say anything, they have a barrier there, and it barely keeps any of the plastic behind that barrier. But we go out and clean up that spot so you can see what it looks like afterwards. It's amazing how much you can pull out of there and what a good effect it can have on the environment in just a short period of time with, you know, a dedicated group of, I don't know, 20 people or something. So moving on from California, I was invited to give a talk to the law school in Hawaii, and they immediately wanted to start an ODA in Hawaii. And I love Hawaii. It's where my first taste of tropical diving was there. So I just couldn't resist and started looking for funding to see what we could do there. And I got a hold of a couple dive shops there. I didn't want to own a boat in Hawaii. It's just, boats are too expensive to operate. I wish I didn't even have one here, but it's our signature boat, and we have to keep working with that. You got all kinds of just magical experiences that can happen with diving there. So here's a little story about what's going on in Hawaii.
Ocean Defenders Alliance. This is a short video about how plastic fishing lines can create havoc for some of Hawaii's iconic marine mammals, turtles, corals, and fish. You probably love Hawaii's rich diversity of marine life as much as I do. 30% of the fish found here are endemic, meaning they can't be found anywhere else in the world. Others, like humpback whales, come here in the winter months to enjoy the warm waters, have their babies, and then mate before they migrate up to Alaska. Spinner dolphins can be seen here year-round and are a huge part of the dive tourism industry. Who doesn't want to swim with one of these wild dolphins? Turtles are another iconic animal of these islands, and they play a vital role in the Hawaiian culture and religion. Unfortunately, humans are having a dramatic effect on their well-being. Whales, dolphins, seals, and turtles are getting entangled in active and abandoned fishing gear. Some of this gear is put in the water by commercial fishermen, but some of it is also left behind by recreational fishermen. Just about anywhere you go on these islands, you will see fishermen casting their lines from shore, hoping to hook a big one. Sometimes that big one may be a dolphin, a manta ray, or a turtle. They don't intentionally hook these animals, but when they cast their lines, there's no telling who is underwater when the hook drops down. And when the hooks reach the bottom, they can become caught on a coral head or a rock. The fishermen then cut their lines and leave behind because they have no way to retrieve it. Ocean Defenders is partnered with several dive shops on these islands. One of them, Island Divers Hawaii, lets us charter their boat once a month when we take our volunteer divers out to local dive spots and drop down to remove as much of this ghost gear as we can in one dive. The dives can last up to 1 hour, and we have pulled up hundreds of pounds of lead weights the fishermen use, as well as tens of thousands of feet of fishing lines. Here's a case where a dolphin had a fishing hook embedded in her flesh, right under her pectoral fin. It would be like you or I getting a hook stuck under our armpit. You can imagine how painful that would be every time you moved your arm. Dolphins obviously use their fins to swim, so they are severely impacted by these hooks. This diver eventually got the hook out because the dolphin was cooperating. Really amazing behavior. She has been seen by this diver many times since this incident and is doing just fine. Here we have a huge manta ray that had a hook and line wrapped around her massive wing, and if left unattended, would have eventually cut off half her fin, no doubt killing the animal. And as you can see, it only takes a few feet of this fishing line to cause a lot of damage. Turtles come in contact with these lines even more frequently because they swim close to shore where they feed on the algae and corals. Some of them have become so entangled that they can hardly move. This one had her flipper completely severed, and with the line wrapped around her neck, she slowly starved to death. Corals are also affected by these lines as they come in direct contact with them and leach the plastic's toxins into their bodies as it slowly degrades over time. How much time does it take for plastics to break down? Scientists say 450 years for a polypropylene line and 650 years for a nylon net. I hope you now are realizing how devastating this fishing gear can be on our native wildlife. It not only impacts their well-being, but it also affects the local economy. Tourists that see marine debris during their snorkeling or dive encounters are far less likely to visit again and will take their money elsewhere on their next vacation. So removing this debris has a direct impact on the health of the ecosystem as well as on the tourism industry that allows the island economy to thrive. We're all thankful to all the volunteers and dive shops that have helped us remove this ghost gear, both on Oahu and on the big island of Hawaii. But it's not cheap chartering these dive boats and supplying all the gear necessary to facilitate the debris removal. We need volunteers. We also need the financial support of the community. I hope you will consider making a donation to ODA Hawaii. As you can see from this video, we have already accomplished a lot, but with your donation, we could get a whole lot more done. Mahalo.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry for the slow delay on this video. I don't know, I guess that's just what we have to live with. Going back more to the problems that Hawaii has, this is what a healthy reef system should look like. All the fish are within the first 6 feet of the corals because that's how far they're comfortable swimming away in case a predator comes along. And that's one of the reasons we dive these areas is because of all the reef fish. But then you go to Hawaii now, where's all the fish? They're in your doctor's office, they're in fish tanks throughout the world. Hawaii does not do a good job of putting regulations on the extraction industry there, the aquarium trade. I mean, look at that, there's no fish there. It's really disturbing. So it's another reason I wanted to get down there and raise my voice and do what we can to clean it up so it becomes a safer habitat for these animals. This is a ghost net that was floating on the surface, excuse me, and there were 100 frogfish stuck in this thing. Frogfish are a really unusual animal, and divers pay a king's ransom to be able to film them. And there were 100 of them in here, and we got that net out of there. And the interesting thing here was this was a commercial dive boat. There were paying customers on this boat, and the boat operator said, hey, do you mind if we take a couple minutes here and forego the dives and get this net out of here? Everybody on the boat wanted to get that thing out of there, and they paid to do that, which shows you the dedication of a lot of scuba divers. One other area that has real problems, this is the big island of Hawaii. There's a place called Camino Beach on the south side. It's the furthest point in the United States. And when they first discovered this pile of debris here, going back, I believe it was 2012, the nets were so high, they were stacked 12 feet high for about a half-mile length there. This just happens to be one area of the Pacific where the gyre drives all these nets, and Hawaii gets inundated with this stuff. In addition to the nets, a bunch of plastic. I actually dug my hand into the sand about 6 inches deep to see, how much plastic was in there. I hardly saw any pieces of sand. It was all plastic. It's really disgusting what's happening to Hawaii, this part of that island. Again, that's the Big Island. So this isn't something that ODA does normally, but I helped another organization out who was focused on that. We removed about 4,000 pounds that day. Up in Hanakahau Harbor, which is right outside of Kona, which is a highly sought after dive destination, we started to gather some volunteers to clean up the harbor itself. It's a pretty small harbor, but there's a lot of stuff in there. We've seen turtles in there all the time. There's nudibranchs. It's a healthy ecosystem in there, except all these boaters dump all their stuff over the side. We've removed, I don't even know how many tires, several hundred tires out of this area. I keep statistics on it, I just don't keep it in my head. And on the very first dive we did there, which lasted about an hour and a half, we removed 7,500 pounds of stuff out of that harbor. And that was just a small section of the harbor. We continue to work the harbor. I obviously can't go there right now. I haven't been back there since January, but every time we go there, we're pulling up minimum of 3,500 pounds, and it's like an average of 5,000 pounds every time we do this. The harbor master loves what we're doing, and they put a sign up a couple of signs up in the harbor that we're doing what we can to help keep the harbor clean. I'm really proud of that because, again, I got turned on to tropical diving by Hawaiian waters. It's nice to know we can give back. So I've talked a lot about the problems of plastics. Well, what can we do? This is one really interesting thing. I hope you guys have seen this. This is called the water wheel. It's a really simple device, and it's put at the mouth of a river. Obviously, the rivers are what deliver a lot of the plastics to the ocean. And this has a spinning wheel on it. The currents of the river drive that paddle wheel around, and then the shaft is attached to a conveyor belt. So all the plastics that come in gets directed to that conveyor belt. The conveyor belt dumps it into that bin you see back there, and now you've got all that plastic that was in the water in the bins. One of the other things ODA is really big on is educating the kids. As you guys know, the children, they're growing up in a really horrific situation right now. The planet is just being inundated with problems, and I want to offer solutions, not just what the problems are. And ODA is one way to help kids feel empowered. I've got them going out. They have a really cool teacher at this Clark Magnet School who has marine biology budding students there. They aren't biologists yet, but they certainly are taking interest in it. And so she has a underwater drone that they can send down there and film it and look with a sonar system for what's going on under the water, and then try to remove it. So we did stuff inside the harbor to get them familiar with how to operate the thing. And then finally, I think this was 2 years ago, 2018, we finally got them out on a boat, and this was off of Anacapa, and let them try their skills, see if they could find some of these traps and remove it. It was a big day for all of us. We had a bunch of divers from the fire department, the rescue part of the fire department, helping us out. But lo and behold, the students did find some traps. Now, the device wasn't strong enough to pull the trap back to the boat, but it let the divers know where these traps were. So they went down and got them, and we got a bunch of lineup that day. And it was really rewarding to finally see the kids. These are our future here. They're getting excited about it, and they had a great time. And I couldn't have been happier to see the looks on their faces. So that kind of ends the introduction on what we do, and see if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, complaints. How does this work, Amber?
Oh yeah, so anyone who has a question, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question. Yeah, this is anyone.
Kurt, you said, is your boat still down here in San Pedro?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the big one.
And then you're just going out with like a minimal skeleton crew, right? Now, the last email that I got from you.
Is that my friend? I can't, it is Dareth. Hi, Dareth.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, we have, because of the virus, I've been very hesitant to take people out since March. We've gone out only twice. And even then when we went out, I kind of regretted that we did. It's very hard to keep social distance on that boat. It sounds big at 55 feet, but it's really difficult. We're going to try it again this weekend, but I'm only taking 2 divers and 3 crew. And we'll see what we do. One of our big projects, it was going to be the big project of the year, was to dive the 7 miles of the break wall and clean up that area. So we just started, we might have covered 200 yards of it or something. So we got a long way to go. Don't think it's going to happen this year, but that's the goal.
Okay.
And by the way, people, Dareth has come out with us several times. She's one of our valued crew.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss normal, as everybody does, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions, Kurt, is how often, I guess it's a 2-part question, how often during like normal operations would you guys go out? And then I guess you already answered the second part of the question, like how has the quarantine affected how you guys go out now?
On average, we go out twice a month. Maintaining a boat is very labor intensive as well as costly. So there's been times when we get out 4 times, but that's rare. Our average is about twice a month. And we've gone everywhere from basically the Mexican border all the way up to Santa Barbara. So we cover a wide area, and it's difficult locating these things. We're trying to buy some equipment that will make it easier, like a sonar system. They'll make it easier for us to find it. Right now we use strictly divers, and our divers go down with these, what you saw, those scooters, those DPVs. They go down and search. It's a hunt and peck thing, and it's very laborious and not the most efficient way to spend divers' time.
Kurt, can you compare a marine protected area with a non-marine protected area, both in regards to the amount of sea life as well as the amount of debris?
Yeah, I was heavily involved in the development of these MPAs, or the whole process of trying to get them established. And I've studied them throughout the world too. Again, I'm not a marine biologist, so take what I say at face value, but I've read that inside an MPA, after about 5 years of it being established and no fishing going on, let me back up a little bit here. MPAs are varying in their amount of fishing that they allow. Some of them allow one extraction, say lobsters or other bottom fish. So that's not a complete, in my opinion, success. Then the other type of MPA, which is a huge success, of what they call no-take zones. Those are the ones where no fishing is allowed in there. Divers can go in there, the public can go in there, you can swim and kayak and do all that stuff, but you can't take anything out of there. And from the studies that I've read, after 5 years, for instance, the lobster population quadruples, 4 times the size of what it was prior to that. And the size of the animals doubles. So like I was saying before, when you have a lobster that is larger, they release, up to 680,000 eggs. A smaller lobster releases just like 60,000 eggs. So, a little bit of size difference, the population gets a chance to explode exponentially. So that's just lobsters, but fish, it's the same thing. They have huge numbers of them inside these things, and they're much bigger and fatter animals. And then you go outside, and it's like almost a desert. You see 1 or 2, and it's nothing like inside an MPA. Does that answer your question?
And then also the debris. Do you notice a difference in debris between the two?
Big time. Yeah, California is really been, the California fishery, as well as the recreational fishers, being really good about it. In the beginning, it was if there was, we still finding a little bit of stuff, but we educated them. We told them, hey, you're in an MPA here, and did you know, kind of thing. I wasn't threatening them with arrest or anything. I was just giving them information. And within a couple of years, hardly anybody fishes in those things anymore. So we don't see hardly any derelict gear in there. Now, you go out to the Channel Islands, and it's a little bit of a different story. We have permits to go inside the MPAs on Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa. And when we've gone in there, there's been illegal fishing that goes on in there. We've removed, I don't know how many nets, but several 1,000-pound nets inside MPAs. And the Department of Fish and Game gets all upset, and they come out and take samples of it. Nobody's ever been caught. Obviously, these guys are doing it at night under the cover of darkness. But along the coast, it's very hard for these fishermen to come in that close and not get caught. But out on the islands, it's a little different story.
Kurt, I have one more question. Have you ever had pushback? And you mentioned after a couple instances of just educating people about the MPAs. But has there been any pushback by fishermen or say the poaching?
Well, I don't want to, just because I have 1 or 2 incidents, I don't want to paint the whole industry as being non-compliant or aggressive.
Yeah, of course.
There's a couple of guys that don't like what we do. They don't appreciate that we're highlighting and complaining about this. But that's my job. Is you got to be the sore thumb sometimes that sticks out, and I don't mind that. It's an education process. We're going to really concentrate on the lobster traps set along the MPAs right now, because as you saw, there's high concentrations of them set there. And I can expect a lot of contention from the fishermen. I know it's going to happen. It happened before. They're going to complain that we're trying to put them out of business. And my objective is not to put anybody out of business. My objective is to keep the whales safe, the dolphins, turtles, keep them safe, and you can continue doing your fishing. But you don't think by killing a whale that there's no cost to it. And that's the problem we have right now. There's no fine for anybody killing a whale or a dolphin or a turtle. I mean, if you do it intentionally, there is, but if these traps are out there and nets are out there, nobody pays the price for it. And we have to highlight the damage that these things do and try to get NOAA and the Department of Fish and Wildlife to work with us to make this not just environmental problem, but a cultural problem. When you start harming these animals, these whales, dolphins, they all live in family clans. They travel with their brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, all that stuff. So when you disrupt that, you're disrupting a family structure, just like you would if one of your brothers or sisters got harmed or killed. And I want to highlight that to people. I know it sounds esoteric to the people that are trying to make money off of this, but I'm not a fortune hunter. I'm not out here to make money. I'm here to coexist.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt. Did anyone have any further questions?
Yep.
Anybody
All
else?
right.
I have one question. What is the best way to get involved if we're not a diver?
Well, as Dareth attests to, she comes out and helps out on the dock or on the deck. She helps out on the boat. We need photographers, people that are willing to go out and do outreach. That's another way to help out. I can't be everywhere, getting people aware of what's going on. People that are willing to do public speaking, marketing, get out and help us market the organization. Fundraising, that's another sore subject that nobody seems to want to do, but it's a necessary evil. As well as writing grants. Grant writers are worth a lot of money because it's a difficult thing to do, takes time, and you might only get 1 out of 10 that you write for. It can be frustrating, but the photography and computer skills and deck skills, boat skills are really what's sought after.
Yeah. I also had a question about the sonar that you mentioned earlier. So is that something that you have not yet incorporated into your work, or I think I remember in the video there was something about that, but was that just like a one-time thing?
That was a one-time thing. Those are expensive. They're expensive devices, and they're very difficult to operate on a moving boat. It was a lot easier to do when it was in the harbor. Just that one device that you saw, the ROV, underwater ROV, that was $30,000. Wow. So we don't have that kind of budget to buy that stuff. But we're going to be doing a fundraiser coming up here, and I'm talking like right now we're going to be doing it because the price has come down a lot on these things. And we found one that we can attach to the boat, so we don't have to operate it. It's not a remote operated thing. It's what they call side scan sonar, so we can mount it to the boat and just go back and do a grid pattern and find out where these traps are. There's organizations over on the East Coast that are already using that, and that really helps me, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We've spent about $15,000 on a couple of different systems that ended up not working, and I couldn't get that. You have to be really cautious into this, but we're getting closer, and I'm really excited about that. So if you got some technical skills and you want to use them on a computer, and a lot of young people, it's not me, I'm not a computer geek, but a lot of young people
Yeah. I actually have a little bit of experience working with sonar, but not collecting it, actually working on the processing side of it. So that's why I was curious about that. So.
Well, come on out and expand your skills.
Yeah, I would love to. Maybe in a few months.
Yeah, we gotta wait for this to clear up. It will. We'll get there.
Oh, and that does remind me, Kurt, if people do want to get involved and want to get in touch, do you have contact information that we can put out in the chat real quick?
It's on our website. If you go to the website, there's a link under how to help or something like that. It's easy to navigate, and just drop us a line and we'll figure out how we can use your skills. And you don't have to commit to this to do it every time we go out, as Dareth can attest to. She comes out when she can and she's still valuable. So it doesn't have to be a total commitment. You can just come out a couple times and then come out when you're comfortable, when you have the time set aside to do that.
Excellent. Does anyone else have any further questions for Kurt?
Not really a question, just a comment. It was just interesting when you were talking about, I used to live on the Big Island, and I passed by that beach all the time along South Point that had all the fishing lines and everything built up, and it's incredibly overwhelming how much is along the shore. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well,
it's just mind-blowing to see the amount of the trash on that beach is crazy.
that is such a hard beach to find. I'm surprised you actually got there.
On the way to Green Sands.
Yeah, that's it. That's the spot. It is so depressing seeing that area.
Yeah.
And like I said, Hawaii doesn't even produce this stuff, and it gets delivered to them free of charge.
It's a shame.
It's sick.
But I'm happy to hear that there's organizations working on
Yeah.
that. Because, yeah, it's
We
terrible.
are. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening, and thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kurt, and thank you everybody for joining us. We will be sending out the link of the recording this weekend, so check your email for that.
8 o'clock.
And starting next week, I believe we have our very own Mel Nutter will be speaking. So looking forward to hearing from Mel. Yeah, so I believe it'll just be a shorter evening tonight. So thank you guys so much for joining us. It's good to see you, Dareth. Good to see some new faces and some old faces. So thank you again to Kurt and to just ODA in general for what you guys do. We appreciate just the hands-on effort that you guys do to protect the wildlife and protect the oceans in general. You guys are doing awesome work.
Thanks. And thanks for all you guys are doing too.